Alright, welcome back. And we're going to talk about changes before I finish the rest of this car that I left off yesterday. So I talked in Discord a little bit about the stats I was looking at, and I decided I could make a few improvements. So first off, my service cost was very high. I managed to save about $100 by doing something I don't normally do, which is changing the engine from a 90-degree V8 to a 60-degree V8. Since it's in here transversely, that's the thing that, some real manufacturers actually done. It's not as smooth running, but it saves me a lot of room in the engine bay and service costs and engineering time. I also changed the engine from regular fuel to premium fuel because there's no penalty for it, and it gets me a lot more gas mileage. What else changed? I changed the luxury cassette to a premium CD. It saved a lot of engineering time, although it looks more expensive looking at the material cost. It's not actually much more expensive, and it's a little better. So in the end, I've gone up a few points in drivability and comfort. I've gone up to almost 19 miles per gallon, which is, considerably better than like 16. And I think we're doing okay here. Now, without further ado, I'm going to take my time finishing out the exterior of the vehicle to a point where I'm happy with. And I'll narrate over that when I'm done. So this is going to be about 2 hours worth, just all compressed into a 10-minute span at 12 times speed. The very first thing I decided to do was that grill, the vanilla grill, wasn't going to work. So I did the cutouts, and then I got to work on filling in the edges after I have the back in there, which led to me questioning my life choices a good bit, because it turns out that these mod bumper bars that I'm using, they're not symmetrical. Like the straight pieces, the center of them isn't in the actual physical center of the object. So when I tried to mirror them to the other side, that didn't work. Or they can't be sitting right in the center, like that top piece there. You can see there's a gap. So I had to go make two of them and all that. The bottom initially started off with like an upward curve just because it followed the body, and that I had to make it into multiple pieces so it would have a more shape that I liked without bending upwards, kind of contouring against the bumper. I don't know why that's the natural curve it followed. But, yeah, just a lot of fiddling with these stupid little bumper bars. Now that the edge is done, I filled it in with a different background mesh, because you could see a lot of like the sides of the headlights inside the car. With the first one I used, it was deeper in. And then, again, replacing the first big, like 2000s looking bottom part I chose with a much more smaller one. And then I'm filling that space in with some paint-colored grill bars so that it looks like small vents cut into a painted bumper rather than like giant vent that's, a gaping hole in the car. And some fog lights there continue the lines started by that. I took a few different attempts at picking something good for a windshield sprayer, and then maybe a little couple tweaks to that big ridge on the hood before moving on. I also added a vent underneath it, so it really looks like it's an intake if you look at it from the driver's area. So now we're a few minutes in, and I've just barely started making the front. And it's trying to clean up those very placeholder kind of eyeshadow bumper bars under the headlights. Just a lot of time fiddling with all these teeny bumper bars to make a shape I want. I feel like there's probably a more efficient way to do that, but, I don't know what I'm doing. Compared to some of the people who really do know what they're doing, I'm sure that this takes me a lot longer. I decided I'd fill in that extra space with some vents, so we have, a little less broken up lines. And it took me a couple tries to settle on the actual shape of vent I wanted, too. And I also was looking at some pictures, and I think especially the car that's supposed to be the previous owned car, I liked how the plastic trim went all the way around the wheel cowls. I like that because it makes those cowls stick out less. And then I'm looking at the side of the car, and I said it looks really, like an ugly square cut off at the bottom. So I've got these sort of bumper bars that I'm treating as like, a step bar. And I had to 3D the very ends in order to get them in there. I like to do as little 3D stuff as possible usually, because it's very easy to make it look inorganic. But in this case I had to fill in the corners that way. Just corners on the body don't like to take pieces very well. I spent a while trying to decide how much stuff I want to put on the side here on the doors and fenders. It's just a big flat open space, and I declined to put like a vent or anything behind the cowl. I think that'd be a little too sporty looking. But I did try to put some body molding on and end up with this line here. You can see me experimenting with some different... none of these like body patches will actually hide the fact that the edge of this thing is raised up, so that creates a very unsightly line towards like the very corners. But I gave up on that. Went on to exhaust. After a little trick here where I've turned the exhaust 3D to rotate it and move it in, and then turn it back to 2D so that it still conforms. I tried a few different ways of doing this tailgate with the license plate in there. My original thought was it would match the grill up front, but since I changed the grill up front, it won't match anyway. And I looked at some different pictures. I'm trying out a few different kinds of lights and kind of giving up on the ones I had looked at first. I kind of looked at some different ideas from a Cadillac Seville. I think the lights I finally ended up going with were from like a 2001-ish version. So I had a couple different attempts at that, but basically the gist is that they're the brake lights are split between the body and the tailgate, and on top of those are the blinker and the reverse light. Of course, what I have here is just some modular headlight shapes. They're not actually filled in with any lights that light up, so that's not good for beam. But a lot of these 90s cars have just kind of big shapes of headlights with you can't really see where the bulbs are behind them. So I figured that was sort of a good look for this car, is just to compound it out of some of these different shapes. And you can see, of course, it took a few drafts before I came up with one I was happy with. Just a lot of back and forth, second guessing myself, not a lot of actual productivity. Even when I kind of have a picture of what I want in my head, I don't find it very easy to find the fixtures that make up that shape that I want. That's just a skill I guess you need to learn by making a lot of cars, and I never like to really dump the hours in on fine-tuning cars unless someone's actually going to look at them, which is maybe part of why I made this into a video. So now that I'm at this stage, I've got a repurposed grille, making that sort of recess in the tailgate that I'm actually happy with. And I've got a tail light shape that I'm actually happy with. So you have just, two blocks split into each is about 2/3 brake light and 1/3 of either the reverse light or the blinker, depending on which one it is. The default size of the license plate is far too large. I actually had to go frickin' ask in Discord if I was crazy or not, and ended up, shrinking the one up front, shrinking the one in back, because they both were a little too big. I just Just thinking, they're that size. Is my car small? No, the license plates are big. So I'm trying to fill in some of the empty space and give the car some natural looking contours. It's kind of hard to go from just individual fixtures that piece on to a shape that looks natural. But in an effort to use up as much of that empty flat space as possible and direct the eyes away from the sharp cut off at the bottom of the car, I'm just filling in the bottoms with a little bit of plastic trim, filling in the middle with some contours. My natural inclination is always looking at the car to try and, I want to reshape the whole body into a more drastic curve, but of course I can't do that. I can only put things on top of it. Up front, I was inspired a bit by the Lincoln in one of the pictures, I think it was, that has body color kind of grill bars for the main thing as well. I think I might have kind of even taken the spacing where they're kind of vertical rectangles from that Lincoln. Now that I've basically gone over everything and second drafted it, it was time to add a badge. And I actually ended up forgetting. I remember that I made the little Transitstar badge out of a couple of arrows, but I couldn't remember how. So I had to go out and look at my other car and see what I'd done to figure out, yeah, that's how it's shaped. Just to squash up the other one there. I'm actually not even sure I got the same this time. But you know what? Who cares? Maybe later I'll figure out how to mod in my own badges and make them look good. Then I'm double checking I haven't screwed up any stats by, adding on spoilers and stuff. So I add a spoiler to the back there. I like that makes that line on the end. I figured out how to do it right. It's set below the top instead of up on there. And then just in the photo scene, you can see the final product here. It's really only kind of a middling car. I don't feel like I have any big feature that stands out, but at least it's cohesive. It doesn't look like there's any massive empty spaces. So we have at the bare minimum for CSR. I don't think it's going to cut it for me. I might have to come back, do an interior, maybe even revise the basic look of the car. They get some catchy feature in there, makes it a little more unique. But for now, this is what I have. And I'll see if I end up having the energy to edit it more or not.